Well, thank you once again for welcoming us here to CatCon 4. I'm also going to point out before I start talking about how Oskar changed my life, I put together a series of a slideshow essentially that has pictures and videos of Homer and Oskar. And just in case somebody in here is not familiar with who Homer or Oskar are, just be aware that the black cat right there, that's Homer, as you can see, name right below. And if you see the tabby, that's Oskar. I'm going to talk about the ways in which the relationship changed my life for the better. And that was when Oskar became popular on social media. And we'll discuss that a little bit more detail later on, but it was really a fluke. It was a lightning strike. It was a lucky moment, but I had a social media following that grew around the world. And that allowed me to become an entrepreneur in a way, to leverage that social media following to open an online store that specialized in very unique handmade pet toys from very small manufacturers. It let me work from home. It gave me the opportunity to spend more time with Oskar. I was with the cats day and night, and with Klaus, and now with my children, something I would never have a chance to do. We live in Seattle, and most likely I would be working for Amazon or Starbucks, going to work at 6 a.m., coming home at 8 p.m., and my relationship wouldn't be as deep as it was. And the criticism that people get all the time is that somehow a cat that's portrayed on social media or sometimes travels to these conventions is in some way exploited, and that's surely not the case. I was around through the entire day with Oskar, so whatever his wish, whatever his needs were, I was there to fulfill them. Honestly, if I didn't have the opportunity to do things on my own and I was working elsewhere, the one big change that I must say would happen was my idea of what it means to have a healthy and happy pet. I was filled with a lot of misconceptions and a lot of, I guess, societal prejudices about what blindness entails. When I adopted Oskar, I expected that it would be a matter of cleaning up messes everywhere. It would be an issue of him running into walls that I would have to put padding along the floorboards and so on. And that was not the case. He proved to me that he is extremely capable, and not only can he be happy on an indoor safe environment, he can absolutely thrive in the home. And I wrote a couple questions for you, so I'm going to piggyback off of that with one directed towards you. You have to let me know what the biggest change in your life was since Homer's Odyssey, the book gained momentum. And I'm going to follow up with that too. And was the book publication really the monumental event in your life, or was it really entering the world of social media?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, definitely the way that life changed for me is that I got to be a full-time writer, which was a childhood dream that I had had. And it was sort of, I never had the courage to pursue it really actively, which was fine. I did a lot of work for nonprofit organizations. I went into marketing, and I really liked what I did. But it was amazing to write a book and to have it do well. And not only, for me to get to be a full-time writer, but to get to have Homer sort of be like a spokes cat for special needs cats. Again, I was real hippy-dippy-ish when I was younger, and I came out of college fired up with an enthusiasm to work in nonprofit, which means committing to being really poor for a really long time. And it's a commitment as a writer I am proud to maintain to this day. Just kidding. But keeping up my creds. But it really was a tremendous and wonderful thing to get to be able to advocate for a cause that I cared so much about and had always cared so much about, and to be able to do so effectively and on a national level. It was amazing to hear from people who had been inspired to adopt blind or special needs cats because of Homer. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? I forgot.
Was the book publication as monumental?
Oh, as monumental as social media. So, I mean, it's interesting because for me, I mean, so the difference, I think, between Mick and me, and we're coming at it from different and an interestingly different perspective, is that Homer was 12 years old before Homer's Odyssey was published. So no one outside of our circle of friends and family knew who Homer was for most of his life. And when I wrote Homer's Odyssey, it was a little weird all of a sudden you write a book for people to read it, and that, but then they read it, and it's weird, when it's a memoir. Like people oh, remember when Lawrence did this thing for you? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I remember, but how do you know? It's like, oh, that's right, because I told you. So, that was interesting, but with Homer, what happened was Homer actually had a fairly modest social media following after Homer's Odyssey came out, even after it had done really well. Famous cats on the internet weren't really a thing when Homer's Odyssey was published, and people weren't necessarily looking for cats to follow on social media back in like 2010. My mother would say, so your cat has social media accounts? And I'm like, well, I mean, he has to, because there's a book. And she's like, so you spend part of your day on the internet pretending to be your cat? And that's your job? And I was like, I mean, it's not just that, Mom. Although I couldn't really come up with anything else that it was. When Homer passed in 2013, and of course I posted on his Facebook page that he had, and that was really, and that one post went viral on a scale that I really was not prepared for, having spent 3 years kind of, with our modest little 15,000 following on social media. And it was really overwhelming initially in a lot of ways, and I think, again, it's sort of interesting. We were, I was just not ready for how big the response was and how many people came to us. But it also made me very mindful of the fact that Homer, well before he was famous and throughout the course of our lives together.
Sorry, I put some distracting things.
I'm talking my heart out here, people. No. It's the first rule of showbiz, right? Never work with kids or animals. So I always say that deciding to adopt Homer was the first really grown-up decision that I made. The commitment that I made when I was 24 years old to take on a blind cat when I was broke and sleeping on a friend's couch, having broken up with my boyfriend and just lost my job, and it was like the really first, like, there's no backing out of this commitment, scary grown-up commitment that I made. And every step of the way, everything about my relationship with Homer, one way or another, informed the person I grew into and changed my life in ways that were major and also very subtle. And that really did continue even after he left. And again, and now, the money that we have raised in the last few years has all been raised since Homer passed away. It is really the amazing thing that there's been this community that has grown up around the memory of a cat and what he stood for. And so, yes, absolutely the most life-changing relationship that I've had. What would you be doing if you never crossed paths with Homer? You have any idea how life might be different, or you don't want to think about it? No, it's interesting. I was working in marketing communications, and I guess I probably would have continued with that, or I'd be like desperately trying to flog some kind of writing project and trying to get somebody to publish it. I don't know. It really is so impossible for me to imagine what I would be doing if I didn't get up every morning, write something about my cats, post something about my cats on Homer's social media, and then try to think of a way that I can sell or do or fundraise something to make money for the charities that we support. I might still be doing all of those things, but one of those people who does them and no one cares, just wanders around, like one of those crazy New York people you see wandering the streets, talking to themselves or pushing their pets around in, shopping carts. And that would probably... Not glamorous. But I guess I would, turn the question over to you. What would you, I wouldn't even say if Oskar had never become famous. What do you think would be different in your life if Oskar had never come into it? Ooh, it's a big question. Yeah, I choose not to think about those things at all, I just kind of commit myself to whatever fate throws at me, and, quite honestly, I think my life certainly would be much duller, and not necessarily for all of the beneficial things that came from Oskar's fame and the ability to sometimes travel, to be in front of people, be at a convention. But yeah, I think I would still be wrangling Klaus like I am right now. He was in my life since 2012 or 2006, so way before Oskar. But yeah, I think that a lot of the depth and a lot of the learning and maturing that happened for me as a person happened with Oskar under my wing. So yeah, it would definitely not be the same. The question I would actually, a follow-up question that I would ask is, and sort of addressing the theme of this, that the lives and the relationships that we have with our cats off the internet. What do you think is the one thing, because we've all read the trend pieces, right? Oh, here's this funny cat story. Here's this cat who's famous on the internet because he did this weird thing, or he's got this weird birthmark, or whatever it is. What do you think is the one aspect of the relationships that we have with our cats that gets missed in these kinds of meme-related stories.
Yeah, I mean, memes are very short. The pictures, images, video clips, something that moves across the internet very quickly, and it's very faddish. It has a moment, kind of meteoric rise, and then a fall. And I think in your case, certainly, and in the case of Oskar, there's a depth, there's a message, there is the idea that this is in some way an uplifting and inspirational story which has the power to do good, both in the realm of animal welfare, as well as, Oskar served as inspiration for a lot of people, a lot of kids as well. So I think when you come to something like CatCon and you're surrounded by memes and things that you saw snippets of, there is a lot of times such a deep and profound story behind it. And I think the real challenge for me was how to portray that, because when I posted the initial video of Oskar, and most of you have probably seen this, it's Oskar shadow boxing the air coming out of a hair dryer. That was a meme. That was something everybody talked about. They could see 8 seconds of that clip. They could see 45 seconds. It's funny. It's kind of a universal thing. It has appeal. But when I wrote the title for that, I mentioned Oskar the blind cat versus hair dryer. And a lot of people started asking questions about blindness. What is it like living with a blind cat? Is he really blind? Is it challenging? Does he poop all over the place? Just everything you could ever imagine. And that led me, to that aha moment that said, you know what, I need to expand into maybe other social media just to share my experience and hopefully convince somebody else that I made the right decision with a, quote unquote special needs animal. Maybe you should take that plunge and kind of serve as a, I would call it an opinion leader. Somebody that has some experience and is able to share that with a large audience. So that was really the moment in which it became something bigger than a meme, and that was my life mission at that point.
I would actually be curious, I'm just curious out of a show of hands, how many people in here have a special needs cat themselves? Can we like interview the audience a little bit?
Well, sure.
I'm just curious if, and no one has to, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know who you are because I saw your hands go up. But I'm just curious, if anybody, and we're going to open it up to questions that you guys can ask us in a minute, but if there's anybody who does have a special needs cat who, in a couple of sentences would just be willing to say, like meme-worthy stuff aside, what you feel is different in how your life has changed through this relationship. Doesn't even have to be a special needs cat, actually. Is there?
There's one right next to you.
One brave soul, yes.
We were living in Bangkok, and there were some drunk motorcycle drivers who were torturing this little eight-week-old kitten. Oh. She has permanent brain damage, and she's been mine.
Oh my God. See, I wrote a whole book, and you just choked me.
He was telling me that I was going to get hurt, and I ran up and grabbed her.
Sorry.
She wobbles and bobbles and just,
I know I love wobbly kitties. I know because it's not like for great reasons that they're, but I just, every time I go to a shelter and they have cerebellar hypoplasia, or other disturbances that make them wobbly. I like that and really cross-eyed cats. Maybe because my little sister, when she was baby, she was really cross-eyed and also had some equilibrium issues. So I always associate, but I just think it's bless you for. I think that actually right there. I mean, you in a foreign country, that is amazing. That is amazing. Was there? I think there was one lady in the back. I do see you in the peach shirt. So,
No, I had a little calico for a number of years, and then when she became elderly, she had hemorrhages in both eyes from high blood pressure. They didn't treat it at that day anyway. And the first one, it just kind of happened, but the second one happened when she was far from home. And luckily the neighbor, who was about to say, well, I've got to take her to the shelter because I don't need any more cats, remembered, don't they have a calico cat around the corner? And so she called us, and I said, yeah, and she said, well, I've got her shut up in my shed because I didn't know what else to do with her. And so I went and got her. And the one lesson we learned was that as long as we didn't move anything, she knew where to go because she'd lived there. And she very quickly got a map in her brain. And the one only one thing that we had to do was right near the end of her life, she got pretty feeble. There we go. And we took one pillow off the sofa and then lined that with a cloth for her, and that was, she could climb up there, and that was her place that she, spent the rest of her days when she was sleeping until we had to.
It is really amazing how, I always say that what I learned from Homer is not to be afraid to do things just because I couldn't see what the outcome was going to be. Which strikes me as being a trite thing to say, perhaps in association with a blind cat, and yet it really did become such a fundamental philosophy for me that has led to literally everything up to even just the idea of you know what, I'm going to quit my job and write a book, and I don't know how this is going to work out, I don't know how it's going to go, and it could be really stupid, and even if it is really stupid, like, okay, so I land badly. Sometimes, you don't always stick the landing. Homer never knew how high what he was jumping off of was, and he was a graceful cat, but he didn't always stick the landing. And that's okay, you get up, truly, and you brush yourself off and start all over again. I think we'll take one more transformational story and then maybe open it up to questions and comments from the audience, if that's cool with you guys to do so.
Talk about my cat, Gracie. I'm a lifelong cat lover, but I always had the impression that feral cats and regular cats were different, and feral cats were kind of like throwaway animals. And then I got involved with a community of feral cats sprung up in my mother's yard, so I got involved with the TRN process. And there was one cat I thought was adoptable, so I said, I'll take her in and I'll adopt her. But then I got her in, I realized she was a feral cat. And I was like, this cat, what are we gonna do with this cat? Should we put her back outside? She's gonna die because just the environment she was in. So we kept her. And I think, she'll just be a cat in the shadows. And over the year, we've had her for 2 years, we still can't pick her up. But over the years, Gracie has shown remarkable progress. Because they always say if a cat is over X amount of months, it's a feral.
Right.
And she was about 9 months old, and she was feral. And she's so loving, and she's shown so much progress. Every day she has a little bit more progress. She loves to get petted. And the experience with Gracie makes me realize that, I should have realized before, but all cats have value. And some cats can still be saved and rescued and socialized, even though they're over the age that a feral can theoretically be socialized. So Gracie's my little shout out to all the ferals out there, that they are awesome cats and they should be given a chance. And she's very, very happy, and we're happy that we have Gracie.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think, and you would probably speak to it too. That is amazing. Again, one of the things that I think you learn from rescue animals is that no one else can define what your potential is or who you are going to be.
Absolutely, but there's so many wonderful inspirational stories, and I know that some people out there wish to share their experience in some way, whether it's online via a blog, possibly social media. As a writer, a published writer, do you have advice of what the best channel is where a person can make a difference with their own story? Only so much room for books sometimes.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and it's funny because I actually, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about new projects, and then we really are going to turn it over to you guys for Q&A. I have a new book coming out in November. It's called My Life in a Cat House. And cat house referring to a house with cats, and not the other meaning of cat house. And it's a story collection. I actually have a monthly series called Curl Up with a Cat Tail. If you go to gwencooper.com/cattails, you can learn more about it. But it's a monthly story series. And so the book has sort of grown out of that. This is actually one story that's not in the monthly series. It's called Cat Lovers Don't Read Books. And the reason it's called that is because when I was shopping around the proposal for Homer's Odyssey to publishers, this is what we kept hearing from editors: but cat lovers don't read books. Which I'm still not even really sure what to do with, I don't even know what that means, especially because I feel like isn't that if nothing else, isn't that the negative stereotype, a sad woman who stays at home with books and her cats? Can I not even get the value of that now that I'm trying to write a book for, the one time the negative stereotype could actually work for you? And no. Obviously, we did eventually find a publisher for the book. But you know, it does not only have to be books, and there are so many channels. You know, I would say from my experience as a writer, and you've written, I mean, and you've gone the non-traditional publishing route. So
Absolutely.
there are so many ways to share your stories and to get them out there. And it's writing, and it's blogs, it's books, it's videos. The main thing is to support the things that you care about. And meaning, if what you are into is books about cats, make it so the publishers can't say cat lovers don't read books. If what you are interested in are videos or you know, that talk about rescues and shelters and things like that, then that is definitely what you should support. But really put your eyeballs and your money where your mouth is, basically. And that is the best way for all of us to keep it going. It's like a slow pan.
I made them 45 seconds long.
That was a day-long shoot. It was the one shoot we did with Homer outside of our apartment. He was so distracted being in a photography studio. So like every shot of the two of us together, he's looking away. I mean, his head is turned away because he was not interested in me or what I was doing.
Klaus did not want to be in the spotlight anymore.
Aww.
He's protesting today. He's older, 17, 18-year-old cat. He's set in his ways. He's saying, no more.
Such
Camera's
a lover,
off.
though. Oh, he's such a lover.
He is.
So what are you guys working on now? And then Q&A. We will throw it over to the
Absolutely. I will
audience.
move to the Q&A pretty quickly. You know, Oscar's story is really been embraced, has been embraced by the National Federation of the Blind. That is the largest organization of blind people worldwide. And there are subgroups of the NFB as well. To members of the NFB and to the executive committee, Oscar's story in many ways has the power to change the perceptions of blindness in more significant ways than even the story of an exceptional person like Helen Keller. And the reason is that blind characters, and he's fact-checking me here, but blind...
He's like, also sighted cats.
And also sighted cats. But the goal for me is to continue the children's book series where Oscar is portrayed as a typical cat. This is not a superhero in the, you know, like Daredevil or similar, where it's a blind person is in some way exceptional. Oscar is just adventurous. He does things in a slightly different way. And that really has the power to inspire kids to go out, explore the world, live the life that they want to live. And we will continue with that. And I will add that actually one of the kids' books that we self-published was recently read from the International Space Station. So an astronaut had a physical copy of the book. It was broadcast to classrooms around the world. And the goal, again, is to have kids realize that, you know, they control what their life is. They can just shatter, again, the prejudices of society towards blind people on their own. Okay, what do you have to say? Okay, I'm gonna pull him out. Maybe he might want to be a part of the Q&A. But we'll continue what we have been doing and really interacting with our fans on social media. And there it is.
There it is.
There's the video that started it all.
In fairness, though, my husband does the same thing when I'm blow drying my hair, so I don't really see what the big deal is.
You know, a hair dryer to a blind cat is very much like a laser pointer to a sighted cat.
Right.
You know? It's the challenge.
That's a good comparison.
But
Well, since obviously no one's paying attention to us anymore, do we have any questions from the audience? Would you?
where do you want to go,
I think
Klaus?
what we're going to do is have
people
people
line
line
up.
up here. So if you have a question, please come form a line right here, and we'll go in order.
And please pet Klaus if you come up here because that's what he wants.
Oh, pobrecito.
Here, I'll oblige right now. There we go.
Sorry.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
In 2011, I adopted a blind kitty because of you and Homer.
Thank you.
And now fast forward to this week, Monday, my old Siamese, who was 19, died a couple of months ago.
I'm sorry.
Well, he had a good life. And I adopted another blind kitten. And he's perfectly fine.
I love hearing that. I mean, it's a really.
I also have a CH cat, too, and he's deaf.
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh.
He's 13. His birthday is tomorrow.
You are a good soul, and thank you, really. The special needs cats, you know, there's so many cats in shelters in general that special needs cats are so often overlooked. And yeah, we have a 3-legged cat now. I used to say, when Homer and the three-legged cat would get in a fight, it was like the world's saddest cat fight. And not that they fought that often, but it is really, once you've adopted one special needs cat, you really, it's...
And can you sign my book afterwards?
I would love to sign your book. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi. I recently had to put down my cat a couple of months ago, and had him for 16, almost 17 years, and it was really hard. But I wanted to know what it was like. Losing a pet is always hard, but the healing process, how much harder it was, if it was harder because your cats were famous. Was there a kind of like extra layer to that you've had to deal with?
I'll actually throw it to Mick, who can probably speak a little bit better, and I'll only say that it was hard. Again, it was harder for me just because Homer had not been so, I guess he always had been. Obviously, people knew who he was, and that's why they rallied. I just didn't really know it or feel it that personally. So for me, it was both. It was overwhelming at first. It really was, because there was such an outpouring of grief, and then you feel so bad for everyone else who's grieving, and yet you're still working through your own grief. But it also became a tremendous opportunity. We actually did some amazing, so many people made donations in Homer's name to Blind Cat Rescue and various other organizations. I would say, if I'm being completely honest, it was a little bit harder at the time because of all the attention, but it's so much better now because there's not a day where I do not feel Homer's living presence in my life, and that is because so many people remember him. I just really do not feel like I ever lost him, even though he's not here with me. So for me, it was sort of both, I guess.
And I'll add that Oskar passed away very suddenly this year in February, 6 months ago. And I announced it via our social media channel right away. I don't have much of a filter on our social media. It's really just a slice of what our life is. In a way, having the post made that Oskar passed away, having it up there, kind of validated the reality of the situation, that this is what happened. I felt like I kind of owed it to the fans, because they watched Oskar grow up from the time that he was a kitten online. So in a way, he belonged to the world. So to me, it was a necessity to do right away. And reading the comments, all of the heartfelt messages, all the beautiful things that were sent our way, I was very lucky to have that, because it was in a lot of ways a welcome kind of distraction at the time. I could interact with people, and my mind and my thoughts weren't drifting to some dark places. So it helped me stay very positive throughout the whole process. And at the same time, it allowed me to expose how I'm dealing with the grief and address a topic that is often neglected in this shiny world of memes and the pop culture cat world. We lose the animals that we love, and it hurts because we love them so much. So the way I dealt with grief was out there for the world to see, and I think in some ways it helped people. I had very positive feedback, But that's a fantastic question. I'm going back.
Hi.
Just stay
So
close in
first,
case
I'd like to say that special needs cats, I got hooked with my very first cat for fostering special needs, and then I let my mom bottle feed, and I got her hooked. So our cat, Elsa, who was actually Olaf in the beginning until we found out Olaf was actually a girl, so we changed her to Elsa.
Olaf's a great name, though. I sing of Olaf loud and big. Yes.
That's how we got hooked. She had hyperdysplasia, and so we ended up losing her to a seizure, but she had a very, very spoiled and good life, huh, Mom? So, yeah. So anyway, my question is, I'm trying to find a balance between fostering, rescue, work, house, and life in general.
Sure.
And the social media thing. In the beginning, when you started it, how much time were you spending on posting your videos? And then did it progress? Did you go from like, okay, here's a 2-minute shot and that's it for a week? Because I have 27 cats, and yeah.
So you're busy.
I'm busy, yeah.
You are
and a
busy
full-time
woman.
job. So, and many other things that go on.
You got things to do.
I got lots of stuff to do. So I find that I post and people love my videos, but I don't know how often. Should I be posting more?
Well, so here, and again, Mick can probably speak to this a little bit. I mean, I'll speak to it more as because Mick, I think, is more of a social media expert than I am. So I'll give you the regular person with a social media following perspective and then throw it over to Mick. But I would say in general, none of this is obligatory. I mean, it's like with anything else in your life. Right, we're all balancing a million things. We all have jobs and families, and family in and of itself pulls you in a million different directions, and that's before you get to your pets, and that's before you get to your friends, and all of this other stuff. Right, so I would say that, I mean, for me, it's slightly different as a writer. It is to a certain extent obligatory because it's part of my job. You know, there are certain jobs that you have where, and it's not just writers, obviously, where social media is a part of it. But I would say, you know, what's that great? But if thine right eye offend thee, pluck it out. Like if it's too much and you can't handle it, you know, I mean, I'm not sure what you are hoping to get out of social media, but if it's just a sense of there are people who follow me and I want to keep them informed, once or twice a week, I mean, if that's what you can do, and if you can't, you got 24 cats. You got things to do. So, I mean, that would be my feeling on it.
It depends what the outcome is or what you desire as the outcome. If it is growth, then you really do have to dedicate, you know, some time to regular postings. It doesn't have to be more than, you know, 45 minutes a day. I would just say that, you know, be mindful of the image or the video itself, you know, dedicate some time to that. But really, I don't spend a lot of time on social media other than just looking through comments because I'm able to address questions that people have about my experience with Oskar. That's really where the time commitment is. But you don't have to groom the accounts too much necessarily.
Okay, so when you started out like with just like a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, it was like 2010, and it was just a different, no one was expecting your cat to have a regular Facebook or I don't even know if there was Instagram in 2010. I don't think there was. I didn't start on Instagram. Actually, I didn't really start on Instagram until a few months ago, if I'm being really honest. But I created the Instagram account in 2013 and then sort of didn't do much with it. So again, I think, you know, for most people, unless you're trying to create a famous cat, then it really should just be like anything else that is a leisure activity in your life, which is to say, you do it as you can, when you can, and not to a point that it becomes stressful, because then what's the point?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hello.
How has the loss of Oskar affected Klaus?
Well, he became very needy. He needs a lot of lap time, and he is, I would say, not more cranky, but more pushy about the things that he needs. Like right now, he's insisting on something, and I can't figure out what he wants. But you know, he didn't really change much. When Oskar passed away, it was so sudden that he didn't even wake up when Oskar had his heart attack. So he never saw Oskar leave, and I think he expected that was just the norm, that Oskar went on some trip somewhere again, you know. But about a week later, he kept meowing at me like this, and then you have to go through all the options. Does he want water from the sink? Does he want water from this sink? Does he want his litter box changed? You know, a snack? Does he want to eat grass? Is he going to vomit any second? Like, there's meowing that precedes everything. But ultimately, it's just a lap. He wanted a lap. But he was an only child for a number of years, from 2006 to 2011. It was only Klaus. So I think a lot of people that have a loss of one cat, especially when they're litter mates, it's a lot harder for the other cat to go on. But he seems to be doing all right. His world's going to be turned upside down soon, too, with another little cat. So that's really going to be the stressor for him, I think.
Well, first off, I'm very sorry for your loss. I was wondering if you could speak to how you balance like traveling, going to CatCons, bringing your cats, and also with like the fact that they're cats, they get stressed out with travel. Because with this, I think comes a lot of people being concerned about like exploitation.
Oh, absolutely.
Being stressed. So how do you deal with it? How do you balance it?
The travel is the easy thing. You know, honestly, there's not much of a peep from Klaus on the way because he's out of the carrier, and in a car he's very comfortable. I suspect that before he was a stray cat, he might have belonged to like a truck driver or something, because he is so at ease in the car. I recently took a 4,000-mile road trip, just, you know, with the family, you know, 2 kids in the car. That's the real challenge, I'll tell you. And then, and Klaus.
4,000 miles with your family in your car.
Yeah. So,
that is a challenge.
It's a challenge just to drive 4,000 miles. So I am not really too concerned with travel. That's not the stressor to me. You know, right now, I think just the fact that there's a lot of reverberation of sound and the echo on stage, he's a little distraught, but at the same time, 99% of his life is just being spoiled rotten and sleeping in the hotel room. And you guys visited him last night.
I mean, he seems minimal. I mean, I wouldn't even describe this as distressed, honestly. I think I mean, he's pretty clearly meowing for
he just wants to
attention,
walk
and now
around
he sees this
and
bed.
explore. Yeah, so
and
we just have to let him be a cat. But there is a fine balance there as well. I mean, you have to know when is it too much. I travel with him to events like this maybe 4 or 5 times in a year. Otherwise, there are things based around Seattle where we live, so it's extremely easy to do. And for the most part, the second we get home, he's by this carrier again, meowing like he wants to do something again. So I got to remind myself that there's a message. There's something that I can share with cat lovers that merits the little discomfort of being plucked from a nap to be brought here for an hour.
All right, so I guess we have time for, we'll keep it quick. We'll get to the 2 people who are standing. And,
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Gwen, we know each other a little bit.
Yes, yes.
So my question, I followed both Homer and Oskar from the beginning, and for the past 6 years, I foster for a special needs cat rescue in St. Louis. So I've had a myriad of paralyzed, quadriplegic, blind, like the whole gambit. And like we kind of talked about earlier, where you have the special needs cats, there's obviously certain life lessons that you teach you. So my question is kind of turning it around on you guys. Through having Homer and Oskar and interacting with people all over the world, what is one of the most profound things that you feel like you've learned about yourself through having them, and also about kind of the human race in general that you found the most surprising through them?
Yeah, so one of the most one of the most discouraging things that I hear from people who work in animal rescue is they will talk about how much they hate, that people. I'm trying to find. I am aware that we're being recorded. But like, people suck, right? I hear this a lot from people who work, and people suck. People are the worst. I hate people. It's not so much that people work in animal rescue because they hate people. It's that they see animals who have suffered abuse and neglect, and bad things have happened to them, and they get discouraged about the human condition. Whereas, I feel like where I am incredibly fortunate in my life is that I'm not the person working directly at the rescue who takes in the cat who has been, had the, crap kicked out of him by someone. I'm the person who works with the rescue organizations. I'm the person who gets to talk to the volunteers and the people running the group. I get to see the best of people, basically. I get to see the best of people every day. And, I worked in nonprofit for a long time before doing what I do, so I have been on the other side of it, where all you see are the problems, and the problems that it seems like no one will help you with. No one cares. You're sending out your fundraising letters. You're trying, please help us raise this money. Please help us with this legislation. Please help us achieve this goal. What I love the most about what I do now, truly, is that really every day I just see the best of people. I see people doing amazing things. I see people saving lives. I see people giving their last dollar to rescue. I get to be upstaged by a cat.
That's all he wanted, was a finger. Don't do this with your
I
cats.
got a finger for him. Yeah. But yeah, so I would say that for me, that is what I've learned about people actually doing what I do, is that there are unsuspected depths and quantities of good in people. And I always hoped that was the case, and it's been wonderful to see that hope borne out.
Absolutely. I don't have much to add to that. It's just, people can be beautiful. The internet, unfortunately, bubbles up a lot of negativity. There are a lot of harsh comments and things that you see sometimes, and it kind of discourages you as far as humanity is concerned. But events like this, I think everybody's heart is in the right place. And when you hear stories about people that adopted cats that are really special needs cats that require a lot of work and dedication and attention, and it's a full-time job, that kind of makes you realize that, people, they're beautiful people out there. That's all I can say.
Hi, I just have a really quick question for Mick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is, I adopted a blind cat about the time that you got Oskar, which is how I found you on Facebook. But my question is, since his passing, I've really enjoyed all the stories and the pictures and even the artwork people have created. And I was wondering if you were going to come out with maybe like an autobiography of what it was like, tips, and because it really helped me go through, you know, raising mine. And he's so easy. He's easier than some of my perfectly able.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I just thought if you were going to come out with a book with maybe
there were
like that.
definitely, yeah, it's a great question. There are a lot of beautiful life lessons that that happen because of Oskar. You know, moments that I think are teachable moments, so to speak. And I'm not sure if I have the skill or the patience to ever come out with it in an autobiographical way, the way Homer's Odyssey is written. But I'm definitely thinking of how to present that, given all the tools that are at my disposal. I mean, it may be through a short video series on social media, something that can live permanently that people can turn to, or another format. I just know that there's a need for it, and you know, that's just, it's another project that I'm still kind of realizing the impact of everything that I had as far as the Oskar experience. So you have to stay tuned for that. But thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
So this is a blind cat right here. That's Oskar hunting flies. So don't think that blind cats aren't
Homer
capable
used
of
to
anything.
catch flies in midair.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bananas to see it happen. And yes, they are unbelievable little creatures.
But this fly survived, so don't have any. Yeah. He just squeezed it a little bit.
He's better than Homer.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Stage rusher. So yeah, this is Faye. This is my daughter. I travel with my family, and she wanted to come up and have her moment in the spotlight. She is the cat whisperer. Her bond with Klaus is amazing.
Thank you all for coming. Another round of applause for these fine folks.
Thank you so much for having us. Pleasure.
Thank you so much.